Close your eyes, dear traveler. Tonight we will take a journey through time, a journey that will take us back nearly 5,000 years, to a place where the desert sands guard the greatest mysteries of antiquity. Tonight we will walk under the Egyptian stars, among the golden dunes and monumental shadows of the Pyramids of Giza. Imagine being there, in the cool Egyptian night air. The day was scorching, but now that the sun has set behind the Nile, the temperature has dropped and a gentle breeze caresses your face. The moon is full tonight, an enormous and luminous moon that transforms the desert into a silver landscape. Before you stand the three great pyramids, Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure. They are so immense they seem like man-made mountains, perfect geometric profiles against the starry sky. The limestone, once white and gleaming, now appears honey-colored in the moonlight, marked by time but still majestic, still imposing, still capable of taking your breath away. This night is special. There are no tourists, no modern noises, no artificial lights to disturb the magic of the moment. It's just you, the pyramids, the desert, and the stars. It's as if you've traveled back in time, to the days when these monuments were new, when Egyptian priests walked on these same sands, when pharaohs ruled one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. Take a deep breath. Feel the desert air, dry and clean, scented with ancient sand and millennia of history. Feel the presence of the pyramids, like silent guardians who have watched over this place for 4 to 6 centuries. Feel the weight of history, the mystery, the wonder. Tonight we will explore every corner of this sacred place. We will walk around the pyramids, study their construction, enter their secret corridors. We will meet the pharaohs who built them, the workers who erected them, the priests who celebrated their rites here. We will discover the secrets of the Sphinx, explore the tombs of the Temple Valley, try to understand how and why these incredible monuments were created. But most of all, tonight we will let ourselves be transported by the magic of this place. Because Giza is not just stone and sand. It is a bridge between the world of the living and the world of the dead, between the present and the past, between what we know and what we can only imagine. Are you ready? Then let's begin our nighttime walk. The desert awaits us, and the pyramids have stories to tell. Chapter 1. The Arrival, the View from the Hill. We stand on a small sandhill to the east of the pyramids, the perfect spot to admire the entire complex illuminated by the moon. From here we can see everything: the three great pyramids aligned from northeast to southwest, the smaller Queen's pyramids, the Sphinx gazing toward the horizon, and beyond, the dark expanse of the Sahara Desert stretching to infinity. The silence here is profound, almost palpable. There's no noise from modern Cairo traffic, even though the city is only a few kilometers away. There are no voices, no music, just the occasional whisper of wind caressing the sand and the distant cry of a nocturnal raptor. We look at the three pyramids, one after another. The largest, the one closest to us, is the Great Pyramid of Khufu, also called the Pyramid of Cheops. It is the oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the only one still standing. It was built around 2560 BC, which means it is approximately 4 to 500 years old. To put this in perspective, when the Romans conquered Egypt, this pyramid was already more than 2,500 years old. When Cleopatra ruled Egypt, the Great Pyramid was older to her than Cleopatra is to us. The Great Pyramid stands 146 meters tall, though it was originally 148.5 meters. It has lost about 9 meters from its apex over the centuries, when the outer casing of white limestone was removed and used to build structures in Cairo. Each side of the base measures approximately 230 meters. It is composed of about 2.5 million stone blocks, each with an average weight of 2.5 tons, though some blocks in the inner chambers weigh up to 80 tons. For 4,000 years, the Great Pyramid was the tallest structure ever built by man, until it was surpassed by Lincoln Cathedral in England in 1311 AD. Think about it. For 40 centuries, no one was able to build anything taller. This alone testifies to the incredible engineering skill of the ancient Egyptians. To the left of the Great Pyramid stands the Pyramid of Khufu, Khufu's son. It is slightly smaller than his father's pyramid, standing 136 meters tall, but it appears taller because it is built on higher ground. Khufu's pyramid is unique because it still retains part of its original white limestone casing at the top, giving us an idea of what all the pyramids looked like when they were new: smooth, white, bright, gleaming in the desert sun like gigantic crystals. The third pyramid, the smallest and farthest, is the Pyramid of Menkaure, Khufu's grandson. It stands only 65 meters tall, about half the height of the Great Pyramid, but it is still an impressive structure. The lower part of Menkaure's pyramid was originally clad in red granite from Aswan, 800 kilometers to the south, transported along the Nile on enormous barges. Around each of the three Great Pyramids are smaller pyramids, called Queen's Pyramids, built for the wives and daughters of the pharaohs. There are also mastabas, lower rectangular tombs that house the bodies of nobles, priests, and officials who wanted to be buried near their pharaohs to serve them in the afterlife. As we observe this panorama, it's hard not to be overwhelmed by emotion. This place has witnessed the passage of empires, has seen the birth and fall of civilizations, has endured wars and conquests, yet the pyramids are still here, unchanging, eternal. The ancient Egyptians believed that pharaohs were living gods, incarnations of the god Horus, and that upon their death they became one with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. The pyramids were not simple tombs, they were machines designed to transport the pharaoh's soul to the afterlife, celestial ramps connecting earth to sky, to the sun, to the stars. In the moonlight, the pyramids seem almost alive, pulsing with ancient energy. Perhaps it's just our imagination, or perhaps there really is something in this place, an echo from the past so strong that it still resonates through the millennia. But it's time to descend from the hill and get closer. It's time to walk where pharaohs walked, to touch the stones that were laid by hands that lived 5,000 years ago. The sand crunches under our feet as we descend toward the pyramids. The wind has calmed, and the air is perfectly still. The stars above us shine with an intensity never seen in modern cities, thousands upon thousands of points of light forming the Milky Way, the same sky the ancient Egyptians called Nut, the sky goddess, whose starry body arched over the earth. We approach the Great Pyramid. Every step brings us closer to this incredible monument, and with each step we better understand its true grandeur. Chapter 2: The Great Pyramid of Khufu, in the Shadow of the Giant. We are now at the base of the Great Pyramid, and from here the effect is even more impressive. The structure towers above us like an artificial mountain, its sides rising toward the sky at an angle of 51 degrees. The surface is not smooth as one might think. The outer casing of finely polished white limestone has been almost completely removed over the centuries, leaving exposed the inner core made of rougher limestone blocks. These blocks form a series of giant steps, each about 1 meter high. The ancient Arabs who saw the pyramids in this state called them el-haram, meaning the sacred or the forbidden, from which derives the Italian word harim, but also the modern Arabic name Aram for the pyramids. We place our hand on one of these blocks. The stone is cold to the touch, cooled by the desert night air. The surface is rough, eroded by thousands of years of wind and sand. Some blocks have inscriptions, graffiti left by visitors over the centuries, names in Arabic, Greek, Latin, in languages we cannot recognize. Every era has left its mark on these stones. But these modern graffiti pale in comparison to the true inscriptions that have been found inside the pyramid, in the hidden corridors and chambers. Some of these inscriptions, left by the workers who built the pyramid, tell us the names of work gangs. The Friends of Khufu, the White Crown of Khufu is powerful. These inscriptions remind us that the pyramid was not built by slaves, as was once believed, but by paid workers, skilled craftsmen, and farmers who worked on the pyramid during the Nile flood season, when they could not cultivate their fields. We begin to walk along the pyramid's perimeter. Each side is about 230 meters long, which means the total perimeter is over 900 meters. It will take some time to complete the circuit, but the night is young and we are in no hurry. As we walk, we think about the construction of this monument. How was it possible to build something so massive and precise with Bronze Age tools? The ancient Egyptians had no cranes, no modern machinery, no explosives to cut stone. Yet, somehow, they managed to quarry, transport, and position 2.5 million stone blocks with a precision that even today is difficult to match. The most accepted theory is that the Egyptians used ramps to raise the stone blocks. But what kind of ramps? A straight ramp from base to top would have been more than 1.5 kilometers long and would have required more material than the pyramid itself. A spiral ramp around the pyramid would have worked, but would have made it difficult to precisely align the structure's corners. Recent theories suggest the Egyptians may have used a combination of ramps, external ramps for the lower part of the pyramid and internal ramps, integrated into the structure itself, for the upper part. This theory is supported by thermal scans of the pyramid that have revealed anomalies in the stone's temperature, possible indications of internal voids that could be sealed corridors or ramps. But the true mastery of the Egyptians lies not only in the brute force needed to move the stones. It lies in the mathematical and geometric precision of the construction. The 4 sides of the Great Pyramid are aligned almost perfectly with the 4 cardinal points: north, south, east, and west. The error is only 3/60ths of a degree, a remarkable level of precision considering the Egyptians had no magnetic compasses. How did they achieve this precision? Probably using the stars. The Egyptians were expert astronomers and knew how to use circumpolar stars, those stars that never set below the horizon, to determine true north. They may have used an instrument called a merkit, a kind of star clock, together with a plumb line, to trace a perfectly north-south line. The pyramid's base is also incredibly flat. The difference in height between the highest and lowest point of the base is only 2 centimeters over an area of more than 5 hectares. To achieve this level of precision, the Egyptians probably used water channels. They filled the area with water and then leveled the rock until it was uniformly below the water's surface. We arrive at the northeastern corner of the pyramid. This is where the pyramid's original entrance is located, about 17 meters above ground level. The entrance is a narrow passage that descends into the heart of the pyramid at an angle of 26 degrees. For centuries, this entrance remained sealed and hidden, protected by the outer casing of limestone. The Egyptians did such a good job hiding the entrance that when the Arab Caliph Al-Ma'mun decided to enter the pyramid in 820 AD, he could not find the original door. Instead, he ordered his workers to dig a tunnel through the stone, the so-called Al-Ma'mun's Hole, which today is the main entrance used by tourists. But tonight we will use neither the original entrance nor Al-Ma'mun's. This is a magical night, and we can use our imagination to enter the pyramid in a way no modern tourist can. Close your eyes and imagine that the stone before us becomes transparent, like glass, allowing us to see through the ancient walls. We now see the pyramid's internal labyrinth, narrow corridors ascending and descending, secret chambers, blocked passages. It's time to enter. It's time to explore the ancient corridors of the Great Pyramid. Chapter 3. Into the heart of the pyramid, the hidden corridors. We enter the darkness of the pyramid. The air here is different from the desert outside. It is stiller, denser, charged with humidity and the musky scent of ancient stone. The temperature is constant year-round, about 20 degrees Celsius, neither hot nor cold, as if the enormous mass of surrounding stone acts as thermal insulation. We walk along the descending corridor, the original passage that descends from the pyramid's north side toward the center of the structure. The corridor is narrow, only 1 meter and 5 centimeters wide and 1 meter and 20 centimeters high, forcing us to walk bent over. The walls are made of polished granite blocks that fit together with such precision that you cannot insert even a knife blade between them. The corridor descends at a constant angle of 26 degrees for over 105 meters. Our footsteps echo on the stone walls, a rhythmic sound that seems to come from very far away. Even though we are walking inside an artificial mountain, there is no feeling of claustrophobia. Instead, there is a strange feeling of anticipation, as if we are about to discover a great secret. As we descend, we think of the first explorers who entered this corridor thousands of years ago, carrying flickering torches that cast dancing shadows on the walls. We think of the workers who built this passage, who polished these stones with such precision, who calculated the exact angle needed to point toward, what? The center of the earth? A particular star? No one knows for certain. After about 28 meters, we arrive at a point where the corridor bifurcates. One passage continues descending, eventually reaching the subterranean chamber, an unfinished room carved into the living rock beneath the pyramid, 31 meters below ground level. But we take the other passage, the ascending corridor, which rises toward the heart of the pyramid. The ascending corridor is equally narrow and ascends at the same 26-degree angle for about 40 meters. This corridor was originally blocked by 3 enormous granite blocks, each weighing several tons, which were lowered into position after the pharaoh's funeral to seal the pyramid. These blocks were so well positioned that Al-Ma'mun and his workers could not remove them. Instead, they dug a tunnel through the softer limestone around the blocks. As we ascend, the corridor gradually becomes higher. We are about to enter the most impressive feature of the pyramid's interior, the Grand Gallery. The Grand Gallery is a masterpiece of architecture and engineering. It is 8.5 meters high and almost 47 meters long, with a corbelled ceiling made of enormous limestone blocks that protrude slightly inward with each course, creating a false vault that has withstood the weight of millions of tons of stone above it for 4 to 5 centuries. We enter the Grand Gallery and stop, amazed by its magnificence. Even in the dim light of our imagination, we can see the perfection of its construction. The walls are smooth and perfectly vertical, the floor rises at the same constant angle as the ascending corridor, and the ceiling seems almost to glow above us. Along both walls of the Grand Gallery are 27 pairs of niches cut into the stone, 27 on each side. The purpose of these niches has been debated for centuries. Some scholars think they supported wooden beams used to lift stone blocks during construction. Others think they held lamps to illuminate the gallery during funeral ceremonies. Still others believe they had a more mystical purpose, perhaps linked to Egyptian astronomy or religion. At the end of the Grand Gallery is a low passage that leads to the king's chamber, first passing through a small antechamber with granite walls. This antechamber contained 3 sliding granite doors, called portcullises, which were lowered after the pharaoh's burial to seal the chamber. We cross the antechamber and finally enter the king's chamber, the Sancta Sanctorum of the Great Pyramid, the place where Khufu's body was originally placed for eternity. Chapter 4: The King's Chamber, the Heart of the Mountain. The King's Chamber is a rectangular room, 10 meters and 35 centimeters long, 5 meters and 20 centimeters wide, and 5 meters and 80 centimeters high. It is built entirely of red Aswan granite, each of the enormous slabs of the floor, walls, and ceiling cut and polished with incredible precision. In the middle of the chamber, against the western wall, stands the king's sarcophagus, a large red granite basin without a lid. The sarcophagus is empty now, and probably has been for millennia. When Al-Mamun and his men entered the chamber in 820 AD, they found the sarcophagus already empty, with no sign of breaking and entering. Where Khufu's body ended up, or whether he was ever actually buried here, remains a mystery. The sarcophagus itself is a masterpiece of stonework. It is slightly larger than the entrance to the ascending corridor, which means it must have been put in place during the pyramid's construction, not after. It is made from a single block of granite, hollowed out from the inside with copper tools and stone abrasives, work that must have taken months or perhaps years. We approach the sarcophagus and place our hand on its cold edge. It's hard not to feel a shiver of reverence. This object was created to contain the body of a god-king, of a man who ruled Egypt with absolute power, of a pharaoh who commanded the construction of the greatest monument ever erected by humanity. But if we focus only on the sarcophagus, we miss some of the most fascinating aspects of the king's chamber. Above the granite ceiling are 5 relieving chambers, built to distribute the weight of the stones above the chamber and prevent the ceiling from collapsing. The highest of these chambers has a pointed roof made of enormous inclined limestone blocks, which diverts the weight toward the pyramid sides. It is in the walls of these relieving chambers that the only hieroglyphic inscriptions ever discovered inside the Great Pyramid were found, quarry marks left by workers, which include the name of Pharaoh Khufu written in a cartouche. These inscriptions were discovered by British explorer Howard Vyse in 1837 and provided the first definitive proof that the Great Pyramid was indeed built by Khufu. There is also another mysterious feature of the king's chamber: 2 narrow shafts that rise from the north and south walls of the chamber, pass through the pyramid's mass, and emerge on the outer surface. These shafts are too narrow to allow a person to pass, only 20 centimeters by 20 centimeters, yet they are built with the same precision as the rest of the pyramid. For a long time it was thought that these shafts were for ventilation, to provide fresh air to the chamber during construction or funeral ceremonies. But more recent studies have revealed that these shafts are aligned with specific stars as they appeared in the night sky around 2500 BC. The north shaft points toward the circumpolar stars, the stars that never set, which the Egyptians associated with immortality. The south shaft points toward the constellation Orion, which the Egyptians identified with Osiris, the god of the afterlife. This astronomical alignment suggests that the shafts had a religious or spiritual purpose. Were they perhaps designed as pathways for the pharaoh's soul, Ka, to ascend to the stars and join with the gods? The ancient pyramid texts, found in later pyramids, speak of opening the doors of heaven and ascending to the stars, which could be exactly what these shafts symbolized. We stand in the king's chamber, surrounded by tons upon tons of stone, in the heart of the largest artificial mountain ever built, and reflect on the meaning of this place. This was not just a tomb. It was a transformation machine, a temple where the mortal pharaoh became an immortal god, a junction point between earth and sky, between time and eternity. The silence here is absolute. There is not the slightest sound, no echo from the outside world. We are completely isolated, suspended in a moment outside of time. It's easy to understand why the ancients believed this was a sacred place, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. But the Great Pyramid still has secrets to reveal. Below the king's chamber, accessible from a passage branching off from the Grand Gallery, is another chamber equally mysterious, the Queen's Chamber. Chapter 5: The Queen's Chamber and the Unsolved Mysteries. We leave the King's Chamber and return to the Grand Gallery. About halfway along the gallery, there is a horizontal passage leading south into the pyramid's heart. This corridor is about 35 meters long and takes us to the so-called Queen's Chamber. The name Queen's Chamber is actually a misnomer. Medieval Arab explorers, seeing that this chamber's ceiling was pointed, unlike the flat ceiling of the King's Chamber, concluded according to their architectural traditions that it must have been intended for a woman. But modern Egyptologists are fairly certain this chamber had nothing to do with a queen. Its true purpose remains one of the pyramid's great mysteries. We enter the Queen's Chamber. It is smaller than the King's Chamber, measuring approximately 5.5 meters by 5 meters and 20 centimeters, with a pointed ceiling 6 meters and 25 centimeters high. Unlike the King's Chamber, which is made of granite, the Queen's Chamber is built of limestone. The walls are smooth but unfinished, and there are no decorations or inscriptions of any kind. The most intriguing feature of the Queen's Chamber is a niche in the east wall. This niche is about 1 meter deep and was clearly modified in ancient times. You can see the marks where the stone was excavated. Some scholars think this niche was intended to contain a statue of the pharaoh's Ka, his spiritual life force. Others think it may have contained the canopic chest holding the pharaoh's mummified internal organs. Like the King's Chamber, the Queen's Chamber also has 2 shafts originating from the north and south walls. But these shafts are even more mysterious than those of the King's Chamber. They do not emerge on the pyramid's surface. Instead, they terminate in small stone doors with copper handles. These doors were discovered in 1872 by a British engineer named Wayman Dixon, who noticed cracks in the wall plaster and, following them, found the hidden shafts. But the doors at the ends of the shafts were not discovered until 1993, when a small robot equipped with a camera, called Upuat-2, meaning opener of the ways in ancient Egyptian, was sent along the shafts. The images transmitted by the robot showed limestone doors with their corroded copper handles, creating a wave of speculation around the world. What was behind those doors? Another secret chamber? Hidden treasures? Khufu's true tomb? In 2002, another robot, called Pyramid Rover, was sent along the south shaft and drilled a hole through the first door. The robot's camera revealed another small empty chamber with another door on the opposite side. The mystery deepened instead of being solved. In 2010, a team of researchers used infrared sensors and radio waves to examine the area behind the doors without drilling them further. They found what appeared to be hieroglyphs painted in red ochre on the back of the first door, but they were too faded to be read clearly. To this day, no one knows for certain what lies beyond the second door, or why these shafts were built and then sealed. They are just another of the Great Pyramid's many mysteries that may never be fully solved. But perhaps that's as it should be. Perhaps some mysteries are meant to remain such. Perhaps part of the pyramid's magic lies precisely in the fact that, despite 4 to 5 centuries of study, there are still things we don't understand, unanswered questions, secrets hidden in the stones. There is another chamber in the Great Pyramid we must visit, a chamber few know about and even fewer have seen, the subterranean chamber. Chapter 6. The Subterranean Chamber, Into the Depths of the Earth. We return to the point where the descending corridor divides. This time, instead of taking the ascending corridor, we continue descending, deeper into the bedrock beneath the pyramid. The descent is long and arduous. The corridor continues for another 75 meters at that same relentless 26-degree angle, taking us 31 meters below the pyramid's base, carved directly into the natural limestone bedrock. Finally, the corridor levels out and opens into the subterranean chamber, the most enigmatic room in the entire pyramid complex. This chamber is rough and unfinished, with an irregular floor and walls that show the marks of ancient chisels and picks. The ceiling is low and uneven, barely high enough to stand upright in places. The chamber measures approximately 14 meters from north to south and 8 meters from east to west, though the irregular walls make exact measurements difficult. In the floor of the chamber is a curious pit, about 3 meters deep, which some researchers call the bottomless pit, though it clearly has a bottom. The purpose of this pit is unknown. Some suggest it was the beginning of a passageway that was never completed. Others think it might have been part of an underground water system or had some ritual significance. The entire subterranean chamber appears to have been abandoned mid-construction. The south wall shows the beginning of a passageway that extends about 16 meters into the bedrock before ending abruptly. The walls are rough, the floor is uneven, debris from the excavation still litters the ground. It's as if the workers simply stopped one day and never returned. Why was this chamber left unfinished? The most popular theory is that the original plan for Khufu's burial chamber was here, deep beneath the pyramid, but the plan was changed during construction, and the king's chamber was built instead, high within the pyramid's mass. This would explain why the subterranean chamber was abandoned and why the ascending corridor seems to have been added as an afterthought, cutting through the already existing descending corridor. But there are other theories. Some researchers believe the subterranean chamber was deliberately left rough and unfinished as a decoy, meant to fool potential tomb robbers into thinking the pyramid was incomplete and therefore not worth plundering. Others suggest it may have had a ritual purpose, representing the underworld or the primordial chaos from which creation emerged, a necessary counterpoint to the perfected chambers above. Standing in this rough-hewn cavern, so different from the precise geometry of the chambers above, we feel the weight of the pyramid pressing down on us. Millions of tons of limestone sit directly overhead, held up by nothing but the strength of the bedrock. It's an unsettling feeling, being this deep underground, this far from the desert air and starlight. Yet there's also something profound about this place. This was perhaps the first chamber carved for Khufu, the first attempt to create a final resting place for the God King. Even though it was abandoned, even though the pharaoh was never laid here, this chamber represents the beginning of the pyramid story, the first chapter in the monumental effort to cheat death itself. We linger in the subterranean chamber for a few more moments, our voices echoing off the rough walls, our footsteps crunching on the debris-strewn floor. Then, we begin the long ascent back to the surface, back to the moonlit desert night. Chapter 7. Emerging into moonlight, the pyramid's exterior. We emerge from the pyramid's entrance, and the fresh night air feels like a blessing after the still, dense atmosphere inside. The moon has risen higher now, smaller and brighter, casting sharp shadows across the desert. The Great Pyramid looms above us, even more impressive now that we've explored its interior, now that we understand the complexity hidden within its massive form. We walk slowly around the pyramid's base, running our hands along the ancient stones, feeling the texture of limestone that has stood here for 45 centuries. On the eastern side of the pyramid, we find the remains of Khufu's mortuary temple, now mostly reduced to its basalt floor. This is where priests performed daily rituals for the dead pharaoh, offering food, incense, and prayers to sustain his spirit in the afterlife. From the mortuary temple, a causeway once stretched for nearly half a kilometer down to the valley temple, where the pharaoh's body would have been received and prepared for burial. This causeway was originally enclosed and decorated with reliefs, creating a ceremonial path from the world of the living to the world of the dead. Most of this causeway is now buried under modern buildings and roads, another reminder of how the ancient and modern worlds collide at Giza. On the eastern side of the Great Pyramid, we also find the three smaller pyramids of Khufu's queens. These pyramids, though tiny compared to the Great Pyramid, are still substantial structures, each about 50 meters tall. One belonged to Queen Hetepheres I, Khufu's mother. Another probably belonged to Queen Meritites, one of Khufu's wives. The third pyramid's owner remains uncertain. Each queen's pyramid had its own small temple and was designed as a complete burial complex in miniature, reflecting the same beliefs about death and the afterlife that govern the construction of the Great Pyramid itself. We also notice several large boat-shaped pits around the pyramid's base. In 1954, Egyptian archaeologist Kamal El-Malik discovered one of these pits on the pyramid's south side, and inside he found a complete, disassembled ancient Egyptian ship. The Khufu ship, as it's now called, is over 43 meters long and was built from Lebanese cedar. It took years to reassemble, and it now sits in a museum next to the pyramid. The purpose of these ships is debated. Some think they were solar barks, symbolic boats for the pharaoh to use in traveling with the sun god Ra across the sky. Others believe they were actual boats used in Khufu's funeral procession to carry his body from the valley temple up to the pyramid. Still others suggest they were meant to transport the pharaoh's spirit to the stars or to ferry him through the waters of the underworld. As we complete our circuit of the Great Pyramid, we're struck by how much we've seen and yet how much remains mysterious. Despite thousands of years of study, despite modern technology and scientific inquiry, the Great Pyramid still holds its secrets close. There are still unexplored shafts, still sealed chambers, still questions without answers. But our night at Giza is far from over. We've explored the Great Pyramid in depth, but there are two more pyramids waiting for us, each with its own story, its own mysteries, its own contribution to the eternal question of why the ancient Egyptians invested so much effort, so many resources, so many years of labor into these monumental structures. We turn toward the second pyramid, the Pyramid of Khafra, standing slightly southwest of the Great Pyramid, its summit still gleaming with its original casing stones. Chapter 8: The Pyramid of Khufu, the Perfect Crown. The Pyramid of Khufu is the second largest pyramid at Giza, and in many ways, it is the most visually striking. While it stands slightly shorter than the Great Pyramid at 136 meters, it appears taller because it was built on higher ground and because it still retains part of its original outer casing at its summit. This casing gives us a precious glimpse into the past, showing us what all the pyramids looked like when they were first completed. The smooth, white limestone casing would have reflected the intense Egyptian sun, making the pyramids visible from many kilometers away, gleaming like beacons in the desert. At sunrise and sunset, they would have glowed with golden and pink hues. After rain, which is rare but does occur in the Egyptian desert, they would have glistened like massive jewels. The ancient Egyptians called the pyramid Khufu, meaning Khafra is great. And indeed, despite being smaller than his father Khufu's pyramid, Khafra's monument is no less impressive. Its slope is slightly steeper than the Great Pyramid, at 53 degrees instead of 51, giving it a more aggressive, dramatic profile. We approach the pyramid from the north, where we find its entrance about 12 meters above ground level. Unlike the Great Pyramid, Khafra's pyramid has two entrances, both on the north face. The upper entrance leads to a passageway that descends through the pyramid's masonry. The lower entrance, at ground level, descends through the bedrock before rising again into the pyramid. These two passageways eventually meet and lead to a horizontal corridor that runs to the burial chamber. This chamber is located at ground level, carved into the bedrock, and is roofed with massive limestone beams set into a gabled construction. The chamber is simpler than the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid, but it still contains Khafra's red granite sarcophagus, which was found empty when the pyramid was first entered in modern times by Giovanni Belzoni in 1818. What makes Khafra's pyramid complex particularly interesting is how well preserved its associated structures are compared to those of the Great Pyramid. Khafra's mortuary temple, located on the pyramid's eastern side, still has substantial remains. We can see the massive limestone blocks that formed its walls, some still in place after 4 to 5 centuries. This temple was where priests performed daily rituals for Khafra's spirit. They would have brought offerings of food and drink, burned incense, recited prayers and spells from the pyramid texts. The temple's walls were once covered with reliefs showing Khafra with various gods, depicting his journey through the afterlife, his triumph over death, his transformation into an eternal being. From the mortuary temple, we can trace the causeway that once connected it to the valley temple below. This causeway is over 400 meters long and was originally covered and decorated inside. Parts of it still survive, buried under sand and modern construction. But the Valley Temple itself is one of the most remarkable structures at Giza. It stands at the edge of the desert, massive and imposing, built from enormous blocks of limestone and granite. Some of these blocks weigh over 100 tons, yet they are fitted together with such precision that you cannot slip a piece of paper between them. We enter the Valley Temple, and even in ruins, its grandeur is evident. The interior was once filled with 23 statues of Khafra, carved from alabaster, schist, and other fine stones. Most of these statues were destroyed or removed long ago, but one survived intact and is now in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. It shows Khafra seated on his throne with the falcon god Horus spreading protective wings behind his head, a masterpiece of ancient Egyptian sculpture. The temple's hall was supported by massive granite pillars, and light would have entered through narrow slits high in the walls, creating dramatic beams of illumination that would have seemed almost supernatural to ancient visitors. This was a place of mystery and power, where the dead pharaoh was transformed into a god. As we exit the Valley Temple and walk around to the eastern side of Khufu's pyramid, we notice something that makes this pyramid unique. It sits directly beside the most famous monument in all of Egypt, perhaps in the entire world. The Great Sphinx of Giza crouches at the foot of Khufu's causeway, its gaze fixed eternally on the eastern horizon. Chapter 9. The Great Sphinx, Guardian of Secrets. The Sphinx lies before us in the moonlight, and even though we've seen photographs and documentaries about it our entire lives, nothing prepares us for the reality of standing in its presence. It is enormous, carved from a single massive outcropping of limestone, measuring 73 meters long and 20 meters high. The head alone is 5 meters wide. The Sphinx represents a mythical creature with the body of a lion and the head of a human, most likely Khufu himself, though this identification is debated among scholars. The ancient Egyptians didn't call it a sphinx, that's a Greek name. They called it Panoramic, meaning Horus of the horizon, associating it with the sun god and with rebirth. We walk slowly around the Sphinx, examining it from every angle. The creature is lying down, its massive paws stretched out before it. Between these paws stands the dream stele, placed there by Pharaoh Thutmose IV in the 15th century BC, more than 1,000 years after the Sphinx was carved. The stele tells a fascinating story. When Thutmose was still a prince, he fell asleep in the shade of the Sphinx during a hunting trip. In his dream, the Sphinx spoke to him, complaining that it was buried in sand and promising to make Thutmose pharaoh if he would clear away the sand. Thutmose did so, and soon after became pharaoh. This story tells us something important. Even in ancient times, the Sphinx was ancient. It was already buried and forgotten, already a mysterious remnant of a bygone age. The Sphinx has spent most of its existence buried up to its neck in sand, protected from erosion by the desert itself. It was only fully excavated in the 1930s. The body of the Sphinx is relatively well preserved, but the head shows significant erosion and damage. The famous missing nose has been gone since at least the 14th century, probably destroyed by religious iconoclasts who considered the statue idolatrous. The beard that once adorned the chin has mostly fallen off, though fragments of it are in museums in Cairo and London. But the most intriguing thing about the Sphinx isn't what we can see, it's what lies beneath it. Ground-penetrating radar and seismic surveys have revealed cavities and chambers under and around the Sphinx. Some of these are natural fissures in the limestone, but others appear to be man-made chambers. Their purpose remains unknown, and most have never been excavated or explored. There are also unusual erosion patterns on the Sphinx's body, particularly on its sides and the walls of the enclosure surrounding it. Some researchers have controversially suggested that this erosion was caused by rainfall rather than wind and sand, which would mean the Sphinx is much older than traditionally believed, possibly dating to a time when the Egyptian climate was much wetter. However, most mainstream Egyptologists reject this theory, attributing the erosion to other factors like groundwater, wind, and the poor quality of the limestone layers. Standing before the Sphinx, looking up at its weathered face gazing eternally toward the rising sun, we feel the weight of time in a way that even the pyramids don't quite convey. The Sphinx seems alive somehow, patient and watchful, a guardian that has stood its post for millennia and will stand for millennia more. The ancient Greeks and Romans who visited the Sphinx believed it could answer riddles and reveal secrets to those worthy enough. Medieval Arab scholars wrote about hidden chambers and ancient knowledge sealed within it. Modern researchers continue to probe its mysteries with increasingly sophisticated technology. Yet the Sphinx keeps its secrets, as mysterious now as it was to Thutmose IV when he slept in its shadow 35 centuries ago. We linger by the Sphinx for a long while, walking around its enclosure, touching the limestone walls that bear the marks of ancient tools and ancient hands. Then, as the moon continues its arc across the sky, we turn toward the third and final of the Great Pyramids, the Pyramid of Menkaure. Chapter 10. The Pyramid of Menkaure, the smallest giant. The Pyramid of Menkaure stands southwest of its two larger neighbors, the smallest of the three Great Pyramids but still an impressive structure at 65 meters high. The ancient Egyptians called it Netja Menkaure, meaning Menkaure is divine. Though smaller than the pyramids of Khufu and Khafra, Menkaure's pyramid is no less significant. In some ways, its smaller size makes it more relatable, more human in scale, while still being monumentally impressive. After all, a structure 65 meters tall built from massive stone blocks is still an extraordinary achievement by any standard. What makes Menkaure's pyramid particularly interesting is its construction. While the upper portion is built from limestone like the other pyramids, the lower 16 courses were originally cased in red granite brought all the way from Aswan, 800 kilometers to the south. This granite casing would have created a striking visual contrast, a red base supporting a white superstructure, symbolically representing Lower and Upper Egypt united under the pharaoh's rule. Much of this granite casing has been removed over the centuries, but some blocks remain, showing the incredible effort and expense that went into this pyramid's construction. Each granite block had to be quarried in Aswan, transported by boat down the Nile during the flood season when the river was high enough, then hauled from the river to the pyramid site and lifted into position. The logistics of this operation were staggering. We approach the pyramid from the north, where its entrance is located about 4 meters above ground level. The entrance leads to a descending passage that slopes down through the pyramid's masonry and into the bedrock, eventually reaching a horizontal passage decorated with carved panels that resemble the palace facade design common in ancient Egyptian architecture. This horizontal passage leads to an antechamber with 3 panels carved to look like lowered portcullises, stone gates that would have sealed the passage. Beyond the antechamber lies the burial chamber, cut into the bedrock and roofed with granite beams carved on their undersides to resemble barrel vaults. In this burial chamber, in 1837, British explorer Howard Vyse found a beautiful basalt sarcophagus decorated with the palace facade design. The sarcophagus contained wooden fragments from a coffin bearing Menkaure's name. Excitedly, Vyse attempted to ship the sarcophagus back to England aboard the merchant vessel Beatrice, but the ship sank off the coast of Spain and the sarcophagus was lost forever, now resting somewhere on the floor of the Mediterranean Sea. The wooden coffin fragments did make it to the British Museum, but subsequent analysis showed they actually date to the 26th dynasty, about 2,000 years after Menkaure's time. They were probably placed in the pyramid during an ancient restoration or reburial. Where Menkaure's actual mummy ended up remains unknown. Like the other pyramids, Menkaure's pyramid is part of a larger complex. The mortuary temple on its eastern side is particularly well preserved, with some of its original mud brick structures still standing, later encased in limestone. The causeway connecting the mortuary temple to the valley temple was never completed in stone and was finished with mud brick by Menkaur's successor, Shepseskaf. The valley temple, located near the modern village, has revealed some of the most beautiful statuary ever found in ancient Egypt. Here, archaeologist George Reisner discovered several triads, groups of 3 statues showing Menkaur with the goddess Ether and various nome, district, deities. These statues, carved from schist and greywacke, are masterpieces of Old Kingdom art, now displayed in museums around the world. On the south side of Menkaur's pyramid stand 3 smaller satellite pyramids, likely built for queens or other royal women. These pyramids are in various states of completion, with one finished in granite, one in limestone, and one apparently abandoned during construction. Their different states of completion provide valuable clues about ancient Egyptian building techniques and the sequence of construction. As we walk around Menkaur's pyramid, we notice that it sits on the edge of the Giza plateau, with the desert stretching away to the west. From here, the view is spectacular. We can see all 3 great pyramids in profile, aligned like stepping stones toward the sky, with the lights of modern Cairo twinkling in the distance to the east. The contrast between ancient and modern is striking. These monuments were built when bronze was the height of technology, when the wheel was a relatively recent invention, when writing itself was only about 500 years old. Yet they've outlasted empires, outlasted entire civilizations, outlasted countless generations of human beings. They stand as testament to what humans can achieve when vision, determination, and resources align. But the pyramids are just the most visible part of a much larger necropolis. All around them, spread across the desert, are hundreds of other tombs belonging to nobles, officials, priests, and family members of the pharaohs. These tombs form entire cities of the dead, and many of them contain treasures of art and information about ancient Egyptian life. Let us explore some of these lesser-known but equally fascinating structures. Chapter 11: The Tombs of the Nobles, Cities of the Dead. We walk westward from Menkaur's pyramid, deeper into the desert, where the sand gives way to the bedrock of the Giza plateau. Here, arranged in neat rows like streets in a city, are the mastabas, rectangular, flat-roof tombs that house the bodies of ancient Egypt's elite. The word mastaba comes from the Arabic word for bench, because from a distance, these structures resemble the mud brick benches that still sit outside traditional Egyptian homes. But these are no simple benches. Each mastaba is a sophisticated structure containing multiple chambers, shafts, and false doors, built according to religious beliefs about the afterlife that were just as complex as those governing the royal pyramids. We approach one of the larger mastabas, that of Senid Inti, a vizier and chief justice during the reign of one of Khufu's successors. The entrance is a rectangular doorway carved with hieroglyphs giving Senid titles and accomplishments. We step through into a narrow corridor whose walls are covered with painted reliefs, still showing traces of their original colors after more than 4,000 years. These reliefs depict scenes from Senid life, overseeing workers in the fields, receiving tribute, participating in religious ceremonies. There are also scenes of food production, baking bread, brewing beer, butchering cattle, netting fish. These images weren't just decorative, they were magically meant to ensure that Senid would have these provisions in the afterlife. We move deeper into the mastaba, passing through the chapel where Senid family would have come to leave offerings and say prayers. The walls here show Senid seated before a table piled high with food and drink, surrounded by lists enumerating thousands of loaves of bread, jugs of beer, cuts of meat, and other necessities for eternal life. At the back of the chapel is a false door, a carved limestone slab designed to look like a doorway. This was believed to be the point where the spirit world and the physical world intersected, where Senidjemib's Ka could emerge to receive the offerings left by the living. The false door is beautifully carved with images of Senidjemib stepping through from the other side, reaching toward the offerings. From the chapel, a shaft descends deep into the bedrock, ending in a small burial chamber where Senidjemib's sarcophagus once rested. The shaft was filled with rubble after the burial and sealed, meant to protect the body from disturbance. But like most tombs at Giza, this one was robbed in antiquity, probably during the chaotic First Intermediate period when central authority broke down and tomb robbery became rampant. We emerge from Senidjemib's mastaba and walk among the other tombs. Each one tells a similar story: a successful person, someone who served the pharaoh well, someone who could afford to build themselves an eternal home near their god-king. There are mastabas for generals and admirals, for architects and physicians, for priests and scribes. Each one is decorated according to the owner's taste and means, creating a vast art gallery of Old Kingdom life. One of the most fascinating aspects of these mastabas is what they tell us about ancient Egyptian society. The owners weren't shy about depicting their achievements. We see officials shown larger than life, supervising hundreds of workers, receiving honors from the pharaoh, living lives of luxury and power. We see detailed depictions of agriculture, craftsmanship, trade, warfare, and daily life that provide invaluable information about how ancient Egypt actually functioned. We also see humor and personality in these tombs. There are images of workers complaining about their tasks, children playing, servants sneaking food, monkeys causing mischief. The ancient Egyptians took their afterlife seriously, but they also had a sense of humor and a love of life that shines through even in their tombs. As we walk among these tombs in the moonlight, it's easy to imagine this place as it once was, a busy necropolis where priests came daily to perform rituals, where families visited to honor their dead, where guards patrolled to prevent thieves. This wasn't a lonely, forgotten place in ancient times. It was an active part of Egyptian society, a bridge between the living and the dead, a place where both worlds met and interacted. But our night at Giza is moving toward its end. The moon is beginning to descend toward the western horizon, and the first hint of dawn is touching the eastern sky. Before the sun rises and the modern world intrudes again, there is one more place we must visit, one more mystery we must contemplate, the meaning of it all. Chapter 12. The meaning, why the pyramids? We return to our original vantage point, the small hill overlooking all three pyramids. From here, as the sky begins to lighten with the approaching dawn, we can see the entire Giza necropolis spread before us, the three great pyramids, the Sphinx, the smaller pyramids, the mastabas, all arranged according to a grand plan that took more than a century to fully realize. The question that has haunted researchers for millennia sits before us in stone: why? Why did the ancient Egyptians invest so much effort, so many resources, so many years of labor into building these monuments? What drove them to quarry, transport, and stack millions of tons of stone into these precise geometric forms? The simple answer is that the pyramids were tombs, built to house the pharaoh's bodies and help them transition to the afterlife. But this answer, while true, is incomplete. The pyramids were more than tombs. They were statements, expressions of belief, manifestations of power, economic engines, national projects that unified Egypt and defined its identity. To understand the pyramids, we must understand how the ancient Egyptians viewed death and the afterlife. They didn't see death as an ending but as a transformation, a journey to another form of existence. The physical body was important, hence the practice of mummification, but it was just one component of a person's being. The Egyptians believed each person had multiple spiritual aspects: the Ka, life force; the Ba, personality; the Ak, transfigured spirit; the name, and the shadow. Death separated these components, and the goal of all the burial rituals, all the tomb preparations, all the offerings and prayers, was to reunite them in the afterlife, creating an immortal being that would live forever among the gods. For a pharaoh, this transformation was even more significant. In life, the pharaoh was believed to be the living embodiment of Horus, the falcon god, and the son of Ra, the sun god. In death, he became Osiris, the lord of the underworld and the symbol of resurrection. The pyramid was the mechanism that enabled this transformation. The pyramid's shape itself was deeply symbolic. It might have represented the primordial mound that emerged from the waters of chaos at the creation of the world, or it might have symbolized the rays of the sun, a stairway for the pharaoh's spirit to ascend to the sky. The pyramid texts, found in later pyramids, speak of the pharaoh climbing to heaven, joining the circumpolar stars that never set, becoming eternal and imperishable. But the pyramids were also political and economic institutions. Building a pyramid required organizing tens of thousands of workers, quarrying millions of tons of stone, transporting it across the desert, feeding and housing the workforce, coordinating hundreds of craftsmen and engineers. This was a massive undertaking that required a strong central government, an efficient bureaucracy, surplus agricultural production, and sophisticated engineering knowledge. In building the pyramids, the pharaohs demonstrated their power and their divine status. They showed they could command the resources of an entire nation, that they could accomplish the impossible, that they were indeed gods among men. The pyramids were propaganda, impressive beyond words, ensuring that the pharaoh's name and deeds would be remembered forever. The pyramids also served an economic function. During the inundation season, when the Nile flooded the agricultural land, farmers couldn't work their fields. The pyramid projects provided employment for these seasonal workers, redistributing wealth and resources throughout Egyptian society. Workers were paid in grain, beer, and other goods, which stimulated the economy and prevented social unrest during the idle months. Moreover, the pyramid complexes weren't just tombs but were entire religious institutions with priests, guards, craftsmen, and administrators who served the cult of the dead pharaoh. These pyramid cities continued functioning for centuries after the pharaoh's death, providing employment and contributing to Egypt's religious and economic life. As we sit on this hill, watching the sky lighten and the pyramids emerge from shadow into the golden light of dawn, we realize that these monuments represent something fundamental about human nature. They express our desire to transcend death, to create something permanent in a temporary world, to leave a legacy that will outlast our brief lives. The ancient Egyptians succeeded in this goal beyond perhaps even their own imaginations. 4,500 years later, we still remember Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure. Their pyramids still stand, weathered but unbroken. Their names are still spoken by millions. People from every corner of the globe travel to see what they built. In a very real sense, the pharaohs achieved immortality not through magic or divine intervention, but through the sheer audacity and magnificence of their monuments. But there's something else here too, something that goes beyond individual pharaohs and their quests for eternal life. The pyramids represent humanity's capacity for collective achievement, our ability to work together toward a common goal that transcends individual benefit. Each pyramid required the coordinated effort of thousands of people: quarrymen, transporters, masons, architects, overseers, bakers, brewers, guards, priests, all working in harmony toward a shared vision. This is perhaps the pyramid's greatest lesson, that humans, working together, can accomplish the seemingly impossible. We can move mountains, quite literally. We can create structures that will endure for millennia. We can leave marks on the world that time itself cannot erase. As the first rays of sunlight touch the pyramid's apex, turning the ancient stone to gold, we understand that the pyramids are more than just tombs, more than just monuments to dead kings. They are testaments to human ambition, ingenuity, faith, and determination. They are proof that we are capable of creating beauty and meaning in a universe that offers neither. They are, in the truest sense, timeless. The sun continues to rise, painting the desert in shades of pink and orange and gold. The magical night is ending, but the pyramids remain, as they have remained for 45 centuries, as they will remain for centuries to come. Chapter 13. The Builders, the Human Story. As the dawn light strengthens, we turn our attention from the monuments themselves to the people who built them. For too long, the story of the pyramids focused only on the pharaohs, treating the actual builders as anonymous masses. But modern archaeology has revealed a different story, a human story full of detail, struggle, skill, and dignity. We walk toward the southern edge of the plateau, where archaeologists discovered the workers' village in the 1990s. This settlement housed the permanent workforce that labored year after year on the pyramid projects, the skilled craftsmen, the core crew of professionals who provided continuity and expertise. The village consists of long, barrack-like structures built from mud brick, arranged in orderly rows. Each building housed dozens of workers, with communal cooking areas, storage rooms, and workshops nearby. The remains of these structures tell us much about the daily lives of the pyramid builders. These were not slaves, as popular imagination long believed. They were paid workers, some permanently employed, others seasonal laborers who came during the inundation when their farms were flooded. They received wages in the form of grain, beer, meat, and other provisions. Papyrus records, found at other sites, show detailed accounts of these rations. Each worker received approximately 10 loaves of bread and a measure of beer daily, supplemented with meat, fish, vegetables, and occasionally luxuries like wine. The workers were organized into gangs with names that reflect pride and competition: the Friends of Khufu, the Drunkards of Menkaure, the Enduring Gang. These names, painted on stone blocks throughout the pyramids, show that the workers identified strongly with their teams and took pride in their work. Archaeological evidence reveals even more intimate details. We found the workers' tools, copper chisels that had been resharpened so many times they were worn down to nubs, stone hammers with handles smoothed by countless hands, measuring rods marked with ancient Egyptian cubits. We found their graffiti, jokes, complaints, love notes, all scratched into stone during breaks from labor. Most movingly, we found their cemetery. Here, in simple tombs much humbler than the nobles' mastabas but built with care nonetheless, the pyramid workers were buried. Their bodies tell stories of hard labor, compressed vertebrae from carrying heavy loads, arthritic joints from years of repetitive motion, healed fractures that show they received medical care. One tomb contains the body of a man whose leg was amputated, probably due to injury or infection. The amputation was performed with remarkable skill. The bone was cut cleanly and healing had begun before he died. This tells us that even common workers had access to sophisticated medical care, that their lives were valued, that they were treated with dignity even when injured. We've also found evidence of the massive logistical operation that supported the pyramid construction. Bakeries capable of producing thousands of loaves daily. Breweries where beer was made for the workforce. Granaries to store the wheat and barley. Workshops where copper tools were cast and sharpened. Dormitories where workers slept. Even evidence of a copper workshop where craftsmen created the tools needed for quarrying and shaping stone. The scale of this operation was staggering. Estimates suggest that during peak construction periods, the workforce might have numbered 20 to 30,000 people. Feeding this many people required massive agricultural surplus, which in turn required efficient farming, irrigation systems, and food storage. The pyramid projects drove innovation in every sector of Egyptian society. Recent discoveries have revealed even more about the builders' lives. We found evidence of medical facilities where injured workers were treated. Skeletal remains show that workers who suffered serious injuries often survived and continued to work, suggesting a culture that valued and cared for its laborers. We found remains of cattle bones with cut marks showing that workers regularly ate meat, a significant luxury in the ancient world. Perhaps most fascinating are the administrative records that have been found at other pyramid sites. These papyri, written in hieratic script, the cursive form of hieroglyphs, detail the daily operations of pyramid construction, how many workers were assigned to which tasks, how much stone was quarried and transported, what rations were distributed, even weather conditions that affected work schedules. One such papyrus, the Diary of Mea, dates to the final years of Khufu's reign and describes transporting limestone blocks from the quarries at Tura to Giza. It provides day-by-day accounts of this operation, mentioning specific individuals by name, describing logistical challenges, noting the movement of work gangs. Reading this document, we're transported back 4 to 5 centuries to witness the mundane reality behind the monumental achievement. What emerges from all this evidence is a picture vastly different from the image of masses of slaves toiling under the whip. Instead, we see a well-organized, well-fed, well-cared-for workforce engaged in a project they believed in, working for a god-king they revered, contributing to something greater than themselves. Yes, the work was hard, incredibly hard, but it was also meaningful, a source of pride and identity. Some workers inscribed their names on the blocks they shaped, the Gang of Horus Medjenu, or this block was crafted by the crew of the powerful White Crown. These inscriptions weren't required. They were voluntary expressions of pride in workmanship, a desire to be remembered, to be part of something eternal. As we stand among the ruins of the workers' village, as the sun climbs higher and the desert begins to warm, we pay tribute to these anonymous builders. The pharaohs get their names in history books, but it was these workers, these skilled craftsmen, these ordinary men and women, who actually built the pyramids. Stone by stone, block by block, day by day, year by year, they created miracles. Their names are mostly lost to us now, but their achievement remains. When we marvel at the pyramids, we should remember, these monuments are testaments not just to the pharaoh's ambition but to the builder's skill, determination, and dedication. They are proof of what ordinary humans can accomplish when they work together toward an extraordinary goal. Chapter 14. The Mysteries That Remain. The sun is now fully above the horizon, its heat beginning to build, though the morning air is still cool. We find shade beside one of the smaller pyramids and consider all that we've seen tonight, all that we've learned. But for every question answered about the pyramids, new mysteries emerge. Despite centuries of research, despite modern technology and scientific investigation, the pyramids still guard their secrets. Some mysteries may never be solved. Others await the right combination of technology, insight, and perhaps luck to reveal their answers. One of the greatest mysteries is the construction technique itself. We understand the general principles, ramps, levers, manpower, but the precise methods remain debated. How exactly were the massive granite blocks of the king's chamber, some weighing 80 tons, raised to a height of over 40 meters? How were they positioned with such precision that gaps between them are measured in millimeters? Various theories have been proposed: straight ramps, spiral ramps, internal ramps, counterweight systems, even controversial ideas involving water shafts or unknown technologies. Each theory has its proponents and its problems. The truth is, we still don't know exactly how they did it, which is both humbling and fascinating. Then there are the hidden chambers. Ground-penetrating radar, thermal imaging, and cosmic ray muon tomography have all revealed anomalies within the pyramids, voids that might be chambers, corridors, or simply construction gaps. In 2017, scientists announced the discovery of a large void within the Great Pyramid, above the Grand Gallery, about 30 meters long. What is this space? Why was it created? What might it contain? These questions remain unanswered. The shafts in both the King's and Queen's chambers continue to intrigue researchers. We've explored them with robots, drilled through stone doors, mapped their courses through the pyramid's mass. Yet their true purpose remains mysterious. Were they star shafts, aligned with constellations for religious reasons? Ventilation shafts? Symbolic passages for the pharaoh's soul? And what lies beyond the second door in the Queen's chamber shafts? The Sphinx holds perhaps even deeper mysteries. The chambers detected beneath it have never been fully explored. The erosion patterns on its body continue to generate debate. Some researchers believe there may be a chamber between its pores, perhaps containing records from a much earlier civilization, though no evidence supports this romantic notion beyond wishful thinking and disputed geological interpretations. There's also the mystery of the missing pyramid iron, the capstone that should have topped each pyramid. Were they made of gold or gilded copper, as some texts suggest? Were they inscribed with hieroglyphs or left plain? What happened to them? Not a single pyramid ion from the Giza pyramids has ever been found, though pyramidia from other pyramids have been discovered. Another enigma is the precise purpose of the subterranean chamber in the Great Pyramid. Why was it started and then abandoned? Was it really a change of plans, or did it serve some ritual function we don't understand? The rough, unfinished quality of this chamber contrasts so sharply with the precision of the chambers above that some researchers believe it was deliberately left rough for symbolic reasons. The mathematical and astronomical alignments of the pyramids also raise questions. The Great Pyramid's dimensions encode various mathematical ratios, including pi and the golden ratio. Its sides align with the cardinal directions to an accuracy of 3/60ths of a degree. The three pyramids' layout may mirror the constellation of Orion's belt. Are these alignments intentional, or are we seeing patterns where none were meant to exist? How much of our interpretation reflects ancient Egyptian thinking, and how much is our own projection? There are also mysteries about the broader context. Why did pyramid building suddenly begin in the 4th dynasty and just as suddenly decline afterward? The pyramids at Giza represent the peak of pyramid construction. Those built later are smaller and less sophisticated. What changed in Egyptian society to shift away from these massive projects? And perhaps most intriguingly, what don't we know that we don't know? What assumptions are we making that might be completely wrong? For centuries, people assumed the pyramids were built by slaves. That assumption was incorrect. What other fundamental misconceptions might we hold? Modern technology continues to probe these mysteries. Satellite imaging reveals structures beneath the sand. Chemical analysis of stone tells us where blocks were quarried. Computer modeling helps us understand construction possibilities. DNA analysis of workers' remains tells us about their origins and relationships. Each new technology opens new avenues of investigation. Yet some mysteries may remain forever unsolved. The ancient Egyptians left no detailed records of how they built the pyramids, no instruction manuals, no blueprints. The knowledge was probably considered so commonplace at the time that no one thought to write it down, or it was considered sacred knowledge not to be shared. The builders themselves, the men who actually knew these secrets, left us proud inscriptions of their gang names but no technical details. This is perhaps fitting. The pyramids have stood for 4 to 5 centuries partly because they maintain their mystery. If we knew everything about them, if every question was answered, would they still capture our imagination the way they do? Perhaps the unanswered questions are part of their eternal appeal, inviting each generation to look at them anew, to ask fresh questions, to seek new understanding. As we sit in the growing warmth of morning, watching tourists begin to arrive and the modern world reassert itself, we accept that the pyramids will always be, to some degree, mysterious. They stand at the threshold between what we can know and what we can only wonder about, between the concrete reality of stone and the ineffable mystery of human achievement. Chapter 15. The Pyramid Texts, Voices from Eternity. Before we leave the Giza Plateau, there's one more aspect of pyramid lore we must explore, though we cannot see it physically here at Giza. The pyramid texts, the oldest religious writings in the world, which provide the only written glimpse into what the ancient Egyptians believed happened within these stone mountains. The pyramid texts are not found in the Pyramids of Giza. Those structures bear no internal inscriptions aside from workers' marks. Instead, these sacred texts first appear in the Pyramid of Unas, the last pharaoh of the 5th dynasty, built at Saqqara about 2 kilometers south of Giza, and continue in pyramids of the 6th dynasty and later. But even though they are not written here, the pyramid texts describe the spiritual journey that the builders of the Giza pyramids envisioned for their pharaohs. These texts are, in effect, the user manual for the pyramids, explaining their purpose and function in the journey to immortality. Let us imagine standing in the burial chamber of Unas's pyramid, its walls covered with columns of blue-green hieroglyphs, 898 distinct spells and utterances, the complete architectural blueprint of the afterlife. The flickering light of torches makes the hieroglyphs seem to move, to speak, to reach across the centuries with their message. The texts begin with the moment of death. Unas has not died the death, he has become one who has glittered. One who is in the sunshine. Unas goes up to the sky like a cloud. He is covered, He is hidden like he who hides himself. He has risen to the sky like the wild goose, and his plumage is that of a sacred falcon. These are not dry theological statements but vivid, poetic descriptions of transformation. Death is not an ending but a metamorphosis, as dramatic as a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. The pharaoh sheds his earthly body and takes on new forms: cloud, bird, star. The texts describe the pharaoh's journey through the underworld, facing challenges and dangers. The sky is overcast, the stars are beclouded. The celestial expanses quiver, the bones of the earth gods tremble. Movement is stopped when they see Yunus dawning as a soul, as a god who lives on his fathers and feeds on his mothers. This is startling imagery, cosmic disturbance at the pharaoh's passage, even hints of divine cannibalism as the pharaoh absorbs the power of earlier gods. The texts don't shy away from raw, primal concepts of power and transformation. There are spells for protection against snakes and scorpions in the underworld, incantations to open gates and doors, passwords to speak to guardians. The afterlife, in Egyptian conception, was not a place of rest but an active realm requiring navigation, knowledge, and power. O you keepers of the gates who keep out the distressed, who control the passes of souls according to who they are, make way for Yunus. Yunus has not come dead, he has come alive. The texts also reveal the ultimate goal, not merely survival but apotheosis, transformation into a star, becoming one with the eternal circumpolar stars that never set. I am a soul, a star of gold. Imperishable am I in the sky. I live with the god of the horizon. I have grown wings like a sacred falcon. I am clothed like the hawk which is on the throne of Ra in his boat. The shafts we saw in the king's chamber, pointing towards specific stars, take on new meaning when we read these texts. They weren't just architectural features, they were passages for the soul, launching points for the pharaoh's journey to the stars. The pyramid texts also contain some of the most beautiful poetry of the ancient world, hymns to the rising sun that express wonder at the daily miracle of sunrise. The sky is clear, Tefnut is strong. Purity is among the stars. You rise, you shine, you make brightness. You are bright in the face of your mother, not the sky. O you gods of the west, gods of the east, gods of the south, gods of the north. These four sets which support the sky announce to Ra that Yunus comes, an imperishable spirit. These texts reveal that the pyramids were not simply tombs or even transformation machines, they were entire cosmologies in stone. Every corridor, every chamber, every shaft and passage had symbolic meaning, reflected the Egyptian understanding of the universe, the gods, death, and rebirth. Reading these texts, we understand why the pyramid form was chosen. The pyramid, rising from earth to sky, represents the journey from the earthly realm to the celestial. Its shape echoes the Benben stone, the primordial mound that emerged from the waters of chaos at creation, or the rays of the sun spreading across the earth. The pyramid is a solar symbol, connecting the pharaoh to Ra, the sun god, ensuring his daily rebirth like the sun itself. The texts also reveal the deeply optimistic nature of Egyptian religious thought. Death is not feared but embraced as transformation. The journey is challenging but not impossible. The pharaoh who dies is not lost but changes form, joins the gods, becomes imperishable. The pyramids embody this optimism in stone, massive, eternal structures declaring that death can be defeated, that the human spirit can transcend mortality. Some of the spells are practical, dealing with earthly concerns even in death. Unas has come to his throne, which is over the two who bring joy. Unas sits on his side, which is toward Seth. They speak to Unas his affair of lifetime. They reckon for Unas his years of food supply. Even in the afterlife, apparently, one must be concerned with food supplies and practical matters. The Egyptians were nothing if not practical in their mysticism. Other spells reach heights of philosophical and mystical thought that rival any religious literature. I am yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and I have the power to be born a second time. I am the divine hidden soul who creates the gods. I am the Lord of resurrection who comes forth from dusk, and whose birth is from the house of death. As the morning heat intensifies and we prepare to leave the Giza plateau, these ancient words echo in our minds. The pyramids may be silent now, their walls bearing no texts, but we understand what voices they once contained, what beliefs they embodied, what hopes and dreams and cosmic visions the ancient Egyptians invested in these geometric mountains of stone. The pyramid texts give voice to the silent stones, explaining the why behind the what. They transform the pyramids from impressive but mute monuments into eloquent declarations of faith, hope, and the eternal human desire to transcend our mortal limitations. Chapter 16. The Legacy, Pyramids Around the World. The sun climbs higher, and we take shelter in the shadow of the Great Pyramid, taking time to reflect on how the achievements here at Giza influenced not just Egypt but the entire world. The pyramid form, born here on this desert plateau, spread across time and space, appearing in civilizations that had no contact with ancient Egypt, suggesting something fundamental about this geometric form resonates with the human psyche. Within Egypt itself, the Giza pyramids inspired generations of pharaohs. Though none would build pyramids as large as these, the tradition continued for over 1,000 years. At Saqqara, just south of Giza, stands the step pyramid of Djoser, actually older than the Giza pyramids, the first large-scale stone structure in the world, designed by the genius architect Imhotep. This stepped pyramid shows the evolutionary step before the true smooth-sided pyramids of Giza. Further south, at Dashur, stand two remarkable pyramids built by Sneferu, Khufu's father, the bent pyramid, which changes angle midway up, possibly due to structural concerns, and the red pyramid, the first true smooth-sided pyramid. These pyramids represent the experimental phase that led to the perfection achieved at Giza. Still further south, throughout Middle Egypt and into Nubia, modern Sudan, dozens of pyramids dot the landscape. The pyramids of the Middle Kingdom pharaohs, though built with mud brick cores and stone casings, continued the tradition. The Nubian pyramids, built by the rulers of Kush starting around 750 BC, are steeper and smaller than Egyptian pyramids but equally impressive, numbering over 200, more than in Egypt itself. But the pyramid concept traveled far beyond Egypt's sphere of influence. Across the Atlantic Ocean, in the Americas, civilizations that had no possible contact with ancient Egypt built pyramids of their own. In Mesoamerica, the pyramids of the Maya, Aztec, and other cultures dominated the landscape. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan in Mexico, built around 200 AD, is one of the largest structures in the Americas, comparable in volume to the Great Pyramid though not as tall. The Maya built hundreds of steep-sided pyramids throughout their territory, from Mexico to Honduras, many topped with temples rather than serving as tombs. These American pyramids differ from Egyptian ones in significant ways. They typically have flat tops with temples, were often built in stages over centuries and served as ceremonial platforms rather than burial chambers. Yet the basic concept, monumental structures expressing cosmic order and divine power, remains the same. In Southeast Asia, too, pyramid-like structures appeared. The Borobudur Temple in Indonesia, built in the 8th century AD, is essentially a stepped pyramid, though designed as a Buddhist mandala rather than a tomb. Its 9 platforms lead upward toward enlightenment, a spiritual journey made physical in stone, not unlike the Egyptian concept of the pyramid as a vehicle to the divine. Even in modern times, the pyramid form continues to fascinate and inspire. The glass pyramid at the Louvre in Paris, designed by I.M. Pei and completed in 1989, serves as a grand entrance to the museum. The Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas is a massive black pyramid. The Transamerica Pyramid in San Francisco is one of that city's most recognizable buildings. Pyramids appear in corporate logos, on currency, in architecture worldwide. Why does this form persist? What is it about the pyramid that appeals so universally to human consciousness? Perhaps it's the stability of the form. A pyramid is inherently stable, its broad base and tapering form making it resistant to collapse. Perhaps it's the implied hierarchy, the structure rising from broad base to single apex, mirroring social structures and cosmological order. Perhaps it's simply beautiful, the clean lines and geometric purity satisfying some aesthetic sense we all share. Or perhaps it's something deeper. The pyramid connects earth to sky, the mundane to the transcendent. It takes horizontal space, the realm of the living, the world we walk through, and transforms it into vertical space, the realm of the dead, the gods, the sky. Every pyramid is an axis mundi, a connection point between worlds, making visible the human desire to reach beyond the everyday toward something greater. The pyramids at Giza, as the oldest and most perfect examples of this form, become the archetype that all others echo. They represent the original vision, the first great expression of this impulse to build toward the sky, to create something that will outlast us, to make permanent what is temporary, to defeat time itself. When later civilizations built pyramids, whether they knew of Egypt or not, they were tapping into the same fundamental human drives, the desire for immortality, the need to express power and achievement, the urge to connect with the divine, the hope that we can create something that will outlast our brief lives. The legacy of the Giza pyramids is thus not just the physical structures themselves, impressive as they are. It's the idea they represent, that humans, working together, can accomplish the impossible, can create beauty and meaning that transcends time, can literally move mountains. Every pyramid built anywhere in the world, in any era, is in some sense a descendant of these structures standing before us. The architects at Giza set a standard, created a form, established a tradition that has echoed through 45 centuries and shows no sign of ending. As we sit in the pyramid's shadow, tourists now flowing around us, cameras clicking, guides explaining the same facts we've discovered for ourselves this magical night, we realize that we are part of this legacy too. Simply by being here, by caring about these structures, by being moved by their majesty and mystery, we help keep alive what the ancient Egyptians began. The pyramids survive not just because they are built of stone, but because they are built in human memory, human imagination, human aspiration. Every person who looks at them with wonder, every child who learns about them, every dreamer who is inspired by them, all of us are part of the living legacy of Giza. Chapter 17: Modern Discoveries and Future Research. The desert heat is building now, but we linger still, discussing the most recent discoveries about the pyramids and what future research might reveal. The study of the pyramids is far from complete. Indeed, in many ways it's just beginning. Recent decades have brought revolutionary new technologies to bear on these ancient structures. In the 1980s and 1990s, ground-penetrating radar began to reveal what lies beneath the sand: hidden structures, shafts, chambers that were completely unknown. These surveys continue, each one potentially revealing new aspects of the Giza complex. Thermal imaging has also proven valuable. Thermal cameras detect minute differences in temperature across the pyramid surface. Areas that heat and cool at different rates might indicate internal voids, different types of stone, or variations in structure. In 2015, a thermal scan of the Great Pyramid revealed anomalies that suggest hidden chambers or corridors, though their exact nature remains to be determined. One of the most exciting recent developments is cosmic ray muon tomography. Muons are subatomic particles created when cosmic rays hit Earth's atmosphere. They can penetrate deep into stone, but dense stone blocks them more effectively than empty space. By placing muon detectors inside the pyramids and measuring the cosmic rays passing through from different directions, scientists can create 3D maps of the pyramid's internal structure without drilling, digging, or disturbing anything. This technique led to the 2017 announcement of the Big Void in the Great Pyramid, a space at least 30 meters long situated above the Grand Gallery. Is it a hidden chamber? A structural feature? A relieving space to reduce weight on the galleries below? Scientists still don't know, and accessing it to find out would require drilling through ancient stone, something done only with extreme caution and controversy. Other technological advances continue to illuminate the past. Stable isotope analysis of workers' remains tells us where they came from. Many were locals, but some came from distant parts of Egypt to work on the pyramids. DNA analysis might soon tell us about family relationships, population movements, even ancient diseases. Digital modeling and computer simulation allow researchers to test construction theories without building actual ramps and moving actual multi-ton blocks. Engineers have created detailed virtual models of the pyramids, trying different construction scenarios to see which ones work with Bronze Age technology. These simulations have ruled out some theories and supported others, gradually narrowing the possibilities. There's also exciting work being done on the surrounding landscape. LiDAR, light detection and ranging, surveys, using laser scanners mounted on aircraft, can penetrate vegetation and sand to reveal structures invisible from the ground. Recent LiDAR surveys have discovered workers' camps, quarries, and ancient roads that were completely unknown, filling in the broader context of pyramid construction. Satellite imagery, especially from high-resolution commercial satellites, has revolutionized archaeology throughout Egypt. Researchers can now spot changes in vegetation patterns, soil coloration, and surface features that indicate buried structures. Dozens of previously unknown sites have been discovered this way, and undoubtedly more remain to be found. Perhaps most promisingly, artificial intelligence and machine learning are beginning to be applied to Egyptological questions. AI can analyze thousands of hieroglyphic inscriptions to find patterns humans might miss. It can process vast amounts of data from excavations, cross-referencing information in ways that would take human researchers lifetimes to accomplish. Looking to the future, what questions might new research answer? Here are some possibilities. The hidden chambers, advanced muon tomography, combined with other non-invasive techniques, might definitively map all the voids within the pyramids. We might discover new chambers, new passages, or confirm that certain spaces are simply structural features. Construction techniques, combining experimental archaeology, actually trying to build pyramid sections using ancient methods, computer modeling, and analysis of ancient tools and work sites might finally answer the question of exactly how the pyramids were built. The surrounding complex, we've barely scratched the surface of the Giza Plateau. Literally. Ground-penetrating radar suggests there are many more structures buried beneath the sand. Future excavations might reveal entire complexes we currently don't know exist. The workers' lives, continued excavation of workers' settlements and cemeteries, combined with increasingly sophisticated analysis of human remains, might give us an incredibly detailed picture of daily life during the Pyramid Age: what they ate, how healthy they were, where they came from, how they were organized. Astronomical alignments. We understand some of the astronomical alignments in the pyramids, but there may be others we haven't recognized. Computer programs can now calculate the exact positions of stars for any date in the past, allowing us to test new theories about astronomical connections. The texts. Although the Giza pyramids bear no pyramid texts, other texts continue to be discovered. Every new text adds to our understanding of ancient Egyptian religion and thought. Machine learning might help decipher damaged or faded texts that are currently unreadable. Environmental factors, climate science and geology can tell us more about the environment when the pyramids were built. Was the Nile in a different position? Was the climate wetter or drier? How did environmental factors influence construction and design? There's also the tantalizing possibility of unexpected discoveries. History has shown that the pyramids are full of surprises. The hidden shafts in the Queen's Chamber weren't discovered until 1872. The boat pits weren't found until 1954. The workers' village wasn't excavated until the 1990s. What else might be waiting to be discovered? Some Egyptologists believe there could be a tomb chamber beneath the Sphinx that has never been accessed. Others think there might be an entire network of passages and chambers beneath the Giza Plateau, connecting different structures. These are speculations, but they are not impossible. What's certain is that the pyramids will continue to yield secrets for generations to come. Each generation of researchers brings new questions, new technologies, new perspectives. The pyramids are inexhaustible in their capacity to fascinate and inform. As we prepare to leave the plateau, as the modern tourist experience continues around us, we reflect on how fortunate we are to live in an age when so much is being discovered about these ancient monuments. Our understanding of the pyramids has advanced more in the past 30 years than in the previous 3,000. And the pace of discovery is accelerating. The pyramids have stood for 4 to 5 centuries, patiently waiting for humanity to develop the wisdom and technology to understand them. In a sense, they're only now beginning to reveal their secrets. What will the next century of research uncover? What mysteries will yield to future technologies? We can only imagine and be excited by the possibilities. Chapter 18: The Return Journey, Lessons from the Desert. It's time to leave. The sun is fully up now, the desert heat is building, and the magical night we've spent at Giza is ending. As we walk slowly back toward the edge of the plateau, back toward the modern world of buses and hotels and bustling Cairo, we reflect on what this place has taught us. The lessons of Giza are many and varied, speaking to different aspects of human existence. First, there is the lesson of ambition. The pyramids show us what humans can achieve when we dare to dream big, when we refuse to be limited by what seems possible, when we commit fully to a vision. Khufu looked at an empty desert and imagined a mountain, then made it real. This kind of ambition, not for personal gain but for transcendent achievement, is rare and precious. Yet ambition alone is not enough, which brings us to the second lesson, the importance of planning and organization. The pyramids weren't built through spontaneous effort or random labor. They required meticulous planning, sophisticated logistics, careful organization of thousands of workers, precise calculations of angles and alignments. Great achievements require great preparation. Third, we learn about the power of collective effort. No individual built the pyramids. They are the product of thousands of people working together, pharaohs providing vision and resources, architects designing the structures, engineers solving technical problems, workers quarrying and placing stones, farmers growing food to feed everyone, craftsmen making tools, administrators keeping records. The pyramids prove that humanity's greatest achievements come through cooperation. Fourth, there is the lesson of quality and precision. The builders of the pyramids didn't cut corners. They didn't say good enough when perfection was possible. The stones are cut precisely, the alignments are exact, the angles are calculated to fractions of degrees. This commitment to excellence, even in details no one might notice, is a standard worth aspiring to. The pyramids also teach us about the relationship between mortality and immortality. The pharaohs who built them were keenly aware of their own mortality, and the pyramids were their attempt to transcend death. In this, they succeeded beyond perhaps even their own expectations. Khufu died 4 to 5 centuries ago, his body lost to time, yet his name and his pyramid endure. The lesson: we cannot escape death, but we can create things that outlive us, leave legacies that continue long after we're gone. There is also a lesson about faith. The ancient Egyptians had complete faith in their religious worldview. They believed absolutely that the pharaoh was a god, that death was not the end, that these massive structures would facilitate the journey to immortality. Whether their specific beliefs were true or not, their faith enabled extraordinary achievements. Belief in something greater than ourselves can move mountains, quite literally. We learn, too, about the value of preserving the past. The pyramids have survived because generation after generation recognized their importance and protected them. Many could have been completely quarried for building stone. Indeed, much of medieval Cairo was built with pyramid stones. But enough people recognized the value of preserving these monuments that the pyramids survived. What we inherit from the past, we hold in trust for the future. The pyramids also remind us of our place in time. When we stand before them, we're humbled by the vast sweep of history. 4 to 5 centuries, older than most nations, older than most religions, older than most of recorded history. They put our brief lives in perspective, remind us that we are part of something much larger and longer than ourselves. Yet there's also an empowering lesson. Those who built the pyramids were human beings just like us. They had the same capabilities, the same limitations. They didn't have advanced technology or knowledge we lack. What they had was vision, determination, organization, and time. This suggests that we, too, might accomplish things that seem impossible if we commit to them fully enough. The mysteries that remain teach us about humility. Despite all our modern technology and scientific knowledge, we still don't fully understand the pyramids. They keep their secrets, remind us that there are limits to human knowledge, that mystery is part of existence. This is not a weakness but a source of wonder. The world would be poorer if we knew everything, if no mysteries remained. Finally, the pyramids teach us about beauty. They are, objectively, beautiful. The purity of their geometric forms, the way they catch the light, how they rise from the desert floor and dominate the landscape. This beauty was intentional, part of their purpose. The ancient Egyptians could have built simpler tombs that would have functioned just as well. But they chose beauty, chose to create something that would inspire awe and wonder. This reminds us that beauty matters, that aesthetics are not frivolous but essential to the human experience. As we reach the edge of the plateau and pause for one last look back at the pyramids, now surrounded by tourists and buses and all the apparatus of modern tourism, we carry these lessons with us. The magical night has ended, but its impact remains. We've walked where pharaohs walked, touched stones laid by hands that lived 5,000 years ago, stood in chambers built to facilitate transformation from mortality to eternity. We've connected with the past in the most direct way possible, through the physical presence of these incredible structures. The pyramids will be here tomorrow, and the next day, and for thousands of days after. They've survived wars and earthquakes, invasions and revolutions, the rise and fall of empires. They'll likely outlast our own civilization, standing long after we're gone, waiting to awe and inspire future generations we cannot imagine. But for us, this night at Giza is ending. We take one last long look at the pyramids, fixing their image in memory. The Great Pyramid of Khufu, massive and eternal. The Pyramid of Khafra with its gleaming cap. The smaller but still impressive Pyramid of Menkaure. The Sphinx, guardian of mysteries. The tombs of the nobles scattered across the desert. And beneath it all, the sand, the same sand that ancient workers walked on, still here, still shifting in the wind. We turn away, begin our journey back to the present, carrying with us the memories of this magical night, the lessons of these eternal stones, and a renewed sense of wonder at what humanity can achieve. Epilogue. Farewell to Giza. As we walk away from the Giza Plateau, the modern world envelops us again. Car horns honk, vendors call out, tourists consult maps and guidebooks. The bubble of timelessness we inhabited throughout the night pops, and we're back in the 21st century. But something has changed. We're not the same person who approached the pyramids in moonlight hours ago. The night has transformed us, as the pyramids once transformed pharaohs. Not into gods, perhaps, but into people with a deeper appreciation for human potential, a stronger connection to the vast sweep of history, a renewed sense of wonder at the world. The pyramids do this to people. It's why millions visit them every year. It's why they've fascinated humanity for millennia. There's something about standing in the presence of such monumental achievement, such ancient mystery, such enduring beauty that changes you. We carry away with us more than memories and photographs. We carry a piece of ancient Egypt's spirit, that combination of ambition and faith, precision and poetry, practicality and mysticism that enabled a Bronze Age civilization to create monuments that still dominate the landscape 45 centuries later. In our modern world of glass and steel and silicon, the pyramids remind us of fundamentals. They remind us that humans have always dreamed big, have always sought to transcend our limitations, have always wanted to create something that will outlast us. The specific forms change. We build skyscrapers now instead of pyramids, launch satellites instead of solar barks, but the impulses are the same. The pyramids also remind us of continuity. They connect us directly to the ancient world, to people who lived so long ago their time seems almost mythical. Yet they were real as we are, with the same hopes and fears, the same desire to be remembered, the same need to find meaning in existence. As Cairo's modern buildings rise around us and we rejoin the flow of contemporary life, we might wonder, what will we build that will last 4 to 5 centuries? What legacies are we creating for future generations? What monuments, physical or otherwise, will we leave behind? Perhaps we won't build pyramids, but we can embody the principles they represent: excellence in craft, commitment to vision, collaboration toward shared goals, creation of beauty, building for permanence rather than convenience. The pyramids stand as a challenge to every generation. Will you create something that matters? Will you work towards something greater than yourself? Will you leave the world better than you found it? For some, the answer might be literal monuments, buildings, artworks, institutions. For others, it might be less tangible legacies: knowledge passed on, children raised well, communities strengthened, problems solved, beauty created in whatever form it takes. The specific form matters less than the spirit of ambition tempered by humility, of confidence combined with care, of reaching for the eternal while acknowledging our mortality. As the pyramids recede in the distance, becoming shapes on the horizon just as they were when we first approached them in darkness, we feel gratitude. Gratitude for the vision of long-dead pharaohs who built these monuments. Gratitude for the skill of ancient workers who made them real. Gratitude for the generations of guardians and scholars who preserved and studied them. Gratitude for the opportunity to visit them, to experience them, to be changed by them. The desert wind picks up, carrying sand from the same dunes that blew around the pyramids before they were built, that will blow around them long after we're gone. The eternal and the ephemeral meet here at Giza, and for one magical night, we stood at that meeting point. The sun climbs higher. The pyramids gleam in the morning light, golden and ageless. Somewhere, a muezzin calls the faithful to prayer, the same call that has echoed over these stones for 14 centuries, joining the much older mysteries they contain. We take one final look back, fixing the scene in memory. The 3 pyramids standing eternal, the Sphinx gazing east, the desert spreading infinite in all directions, and above it all, the Egyptian sun, the same sun the ancient Egyptians worshipped, the same sun that illuminated these stones when they were new, the same sun that will shine on them long after humanity itself is gone. Then we turn away, carrying Giza in our hearts, ready to return to our lives, but changed, elevated, inspired by our communion with eternity. Farewell, pyramids. Farewell, Sphinx. Farewell, ancient stones and desert sands. Thank you for the lessons, the mysteries, the wonder, the magic. Until we meet again, in dreams, in memories, or perhaps on another moonlit night when the past reaches out to touch the present and time itself seems to stand still. The pyramids remain, silent and eternal, waiting for the next dreamer, the next seeker, the next soul ready to be transformed by their ancient magic. May you sleep well, dreaming of moonlight on ancient stones, of corridors that lead to eternity, of the eternal human spirit that can move mountains and defeat time itself. Good night, traveler. May the stars guide your dreams.